Hi everyone, Allie here from TheFamilyMeeple, and today I am going to be continuing my countdown of the top 100 games of all time for 2023. In this list, I will be sharing my top games from 30 to 21. If you haven't checked out the rest of the list, I would definitely encourage you to do so. There is a playlist on my YouTube channel where you can find all of the videos. I will also link to my introduction video in the description below if you want to start there. It's a great place to start. I talk a little bit about how I created this list for 2023, as well as how I created my list in 2021, which I will be comparing to throughout if any of the games were on my original list at that time. With that, let's go ahead and get started with today's 10 games. Starting out today, coming in at number 30 is a new game to the list that was not there before. This is Charterstone. Charterstone is a 2021 game designed by Jamie Stegmaier and published by Stonemaier Games. The artwork is from Lena Cossette and David Forrest. Charterstone is an interesting game on the list, and it's one that I feel may move around in the future when I make this list again, because I have actually only played the first game of this legacy campaign. Charterstone is a legacy game, which means that you will be changing and altering the game as you play. In Charterstone specifically, so far in the first game, this primarily means adding stickers to the game board to actually create the worker placement locations that you'll be visiting. Charterstone is primarily a worker placement game, so you will be sending workers out to collect resources and then turning those resources in to achieve different objectives and earn victory points. It's one that I started with my husband and another couple that we are friends with, and we haven't been able to get it back to the table just because life is crazy and both of us have kids, so there's definitely challenges in scheduling games to play legacy games, and that's one of the main reasons that this is actually the only legacy game that I have attempted to play and the only one that you will see on my list at all. But Charterstone has such a fun aesthetic, and I love the uniqueness of building out the board and adding these stickers to the different locations. We just had an absolute blast with our first game, and it's one that I can't wait to get back to the table. That's the main reason why it showed up as high as it did, because I enjoy the worker placement and I really want to get this back to the table and be able to start experiencing the rest of the legacy campaign. I do also like that the game comes with a double-sided board, so when we do finish the first campaign, not only can we continue to play the game on the board that we've created as just a standard worker placement game, but you can also flip the game over, purchase a recharge pack, and go through the campaign again. Charterstone does include a solo mode as well, so it's one that I would like to explore more. Once we finish through our multiplayer campaign, I will likely purchase the recharge pack and give it a try solo with the AI mode from the Automa Factory as well. But I won't talk a ton about Charterstone outside of the basic mechanics being the worker placement and the legacy aspect of editing and changing the board in the game as you go. But it is one that I've definitely enjoyed and one that I can't wait to get back to the table. So that is number 30, Charterstone. Number 29 is a game that was on the list originally in 2021. This is Fantastic Factories. Fantastic Factories was designed by Joseph Chen and Justin Faulkner with artwork from Joseph Chen. It was published by MetaFactory Games and Deepwater Games in 2019. Fantastic Factories was originally on my list at number 12, so it has dropped about 17 places, which isn't really that much. Fantastic Factories is a dice worker placement and tableau building game for 1 to 5 players, I believe. And it's a game that I actually won a copy of for myself in a giveaway, and it came with an insert. So It's one that I've had for a little while. And when I won the copy during the giveaway, there was a Kickstarter campaign going on for the expansions, which I opted not to back because I hadn't played the game yet. Once I got the game home and started playing the solo, I fell in love with it and immediately went and late pledged for all of the expansion content as well. Fantastic Factories, like I said, is a dice worker placement and tableau building game. So it plays in a series of rounds, and each round has 2 phases. In the first phase, players are going to be collecting new building cards or assistant, like construction worker cards, from a display in the center of the table. The building cards are free to take. You can just pick one, take it, add it to your hand, and that's your turn for phase 1. Or you can actually discard a card with a matching symbol to collect one of the worker, like construction worker cards. And those will give you a special ability, typically just for the next round of the game or the next phase of the game. So once everyone has drafted a card, then in phase 2, you can actually play simultaneously. In phase 2, you will have 4, I believe it's usually 4 dice. You will roll them, and then you will place them out either on your player board, your double-sided factory player board, or on any of the cards that you've built into your personal tableau. The player board will allow you to use dice to draw more cards for your hand, add energy, or add metal resources into your supply. To play a card from your hand, you will see a cost in the corner, the left corner of the card, that will show you the symbol of the card. So for example, you might have a blue symbol on the card, plus it will have an energy and or metal cost. So to play the card, you have to pay the metal and the energy from your supply, but you also will have to discard a matching symbol card from your hand in order to play it. So the symbol that you see is not only the type of card that it is, but it's also a cost that has to be paid in order to play it. This is the only part of the game that tends to be a slight bit tricky for new players to wrap their head around. Once you've discarded a matching card and paid any resources you need to, you'll add the card to the display in front of you. Some of the cards will give you ongoing benefits or benefits that you'll be able to gain once per turn or round when a certain condition is met. So for example, a lot of the cards will say, when you build a building, then you'll get to take this special benefit. Some of them will allow you to trade resources for additional dice or turning the dice pip face, so mitigating your dice rolls. And then other cards will actually have dice locations with different values on them that allow you to take certain actions. So on some of them, you'll be able to place a die and earn more energy or more metal or more cards. Or on a lot of them, you'll be able to take those dice and activate the card in order to gain a like a little box token or a goods token that you can produce. And you'll produce goods and store them on the card that produced them. You'll play out completing this phase simultaneously until you have run out of dice or run out of the ability to play any cards or you don't want to do anything anymore. Once everyone has finished, then you will go ahead and start a second round and draft cards again and then repeat. You'll keep playing in this manner until a player has either done one of 2 things, added their 10th building card into their tableau or produced their 12th goods through their production cards. Once that happens, then everyone will have 1 additional round to play before the game ends. You will, at the end, score points for the goods that you've manufactured, as well as points for all of the cards that you've built into your tableau. Some of the cards are worth no points because they have good in-game benefits, so they are worth more in-game and not worth anything at the end. And then there are also like monument cards that are just worth a bunch of points at the end of the game, but don't really do much in-game for you. You'll count up all of your points from your cards and your goods, and the player with the most points wins. This is a game that I have played primarily solo, but I have also played it multiplayer. I have played it with my husband at 2-player, and then I also taught this at 5 players at the Dice Tower Retreat and played a game there at the full 5-player count. It works equally well solo, 2 players, 5 players. I've loved all of my plays of this. It plays relatively quickly. It's not a challenging or difficult game to get into, but it's one that I have just absolutely enjoyed. And it's always such a tight puzzle. No matter how many players, the scores are always really tight at the end. It's usually within like 5 points of each other, and you're not going to earn a lot of points in the game. So winning scores are usually somewhere like in the 20s is pretty common. The solo game is very easy to run. It has a simple rule set that uses the colored dice in order to dictate which cards the AI player will collect and how they will produce goods. You will play until you reach the end victory conditions, and you don't want to dawdle on it because each round that you play, the AI player will be rolling dice and collecting goods, and they will really start racking up goods as you get into the later turns in the round because they will have more and more cards, which is how they dictate whether a roll is successful or not to produce goods on their board. I've also purchased the upgraded playmat for the game, which is super helpful in setting up the game quickly, as well as the double-sided nature has the solo play on the back of the mat, which reminds you what the AI player is going to do with all of those dice rolls. So this is one I highly recommend checking out. It's a favorite of mine for sure, and it plays very quickly, great for families, great for introductory gamers and hobby gamers alike. This is number 29, Fantastic Factories. Number 28 is a new game to the list. This is The Grand Carnival. The Grand Carnival is a 2020 game designed by Rob Kramer with artwork from Ryan Goldsberry. It was published by Uproarious Games and Fowers Games. The Grand Carnival is a polyomino tile placement sort of puzzle game that plays over a number of rounds. In the Grand Carnival, you are going to be creating a carnival with rides and attractions on your own personal player board. In order to create rides and attractions and build them into your carnival, you first have to lay the foundation and the footprint of your carnival by placing square foundation tiles onto your player board. On your turn, you will be taking an action with a strength of 1 to 5. And on your player board, you will have spots that are numbered 1 to 5, and you'll place one of your markers into one of your empty slots. So each round of the game, you will have 5 turns, and you'll take each of the different 5 strengths of actions once during the round. You can take one of 3 actions with your turn. You can either draft a foundation tile and add it to your park, draft an attraction tile and add it to your park, or move patrons into your park from your entrance or through your park that were already on the ground somewhere. The first several turns of the game, you're going to be primarily drafting the foundation tiles and building up a space to put your attractions. Once you have attractions in your park is when you're going to start wanting to move your patrons into the park, because the attractions that you place out are worth nothing at the end of the game if no one visited them during the game. So you want to have your patrons move through your park and stop adjacent to your attractions so that they can actually ride them and add tickets to those locations. At the end of the game, you're going to be scoring a little bit of a point salad. You'll be scoring for sets of the same size of attraction that you've built. You'll be scoring for all of the tickets on your attractions. You'll be scoring for having one of each size of attraction. You'll be scoring for having barkers in your park, which you'll obtain by making sure that you're moving patrons through your park. And you can also score for getting any of your patrons all the way to the very top of your board to the big top tent. The Grand Carnival plays from 1 to 4 players. The solo mode plays slightly differently than the multiplayer game, but not so much that it feels like a wholly different game. This is one that I have had enormous success with introducing to new players. This is one of the main games that we have played multiple times in my mom's game group, and it's one that we pull out frequently when we go to the game cafe to play. I do own this one in the collection as well and have played it quite a bit solo. It is not an overly quick game. It can take a little bit of time, but because you only have one action on your turn and you only have 3 actions to pick from, it's very quick to learn and pick up from new players, and it's one that always goes over well and people enjoy playing. This is another one that once you get done with the first game, I've had people just say, okay, again, let's play again. And so we've played this one back to back on game nights. The artwork is absolutely adorable. I love it's sort of like a 1920s, 1930s carnival feel to the game, and it just looks great on the table. Really funky, really cute. This is another game that has an upcoming expansion coming out from a Kickstarter campaign. I did back the expansion, which will include some module expansion content to switch up the game a little bit and add some more variety to it. It's one that will definitely stay in my collection. I love this one so much, and it's great to introduce to people. Like I said, it's a fantastic game for new players and gamers alike. So this is my number 28, The Grand Carnival. Number 27 is another new game to the list. This is actually a game that I did not pick up and play until late in 2022. So it is one that rose very high on the list very quickly. This is Gugong. Gugong was published by Game Brewer, and I believe Tasty Minstrel Games was also one of the publishers originally. It was designed by Andreas Stedding with artwork from Andreas Resch and Noah Edelman. Gugong was originally published in 2018. Gugong is a game that I hadn't really heard much about until I received it in a trade. And it was one that I sort of looked at briefly when it was proposed for a trade, and I figured, why not? We'll give it a shot and see how it goes. And I just absolutely fell in love with it after my first play. I think I'd played it maybe once or twice before I made this list. It's on my current solo challenge, so I'll be talking more about the solo gameplay in May when that finishes up, and I, film and publish that video as well. But I have only played it solo so far. Gugong is a medium weight game, so it's not a simple game, and I wouldn't consider it necessarily a family game or an introductory game by any means. It's certainly more of a medium weight strategy game, and definitely in like the Euro game style. So if that's the type of games that you enjoy, this one is probably going to be more up your alley than some of the other ones I've talked about on my list. In Gugong, you will be using a hand of cards to take basically worker placement actions out on the board, but you don't have workers. You have cards that represent gifts. So you are exchanging gifts with people around the like Chinese empire's domain. So for example, you might exchange a gift with the emperor's emissary at the Great Wall and help towards the construction of the Great Wall. Or you might play it at the temple and increase your reputation or your status on the temple track. And there's several different locations around the board that you can exchange these gifts at. If you exchange a gift that's of a higher value than the one that was already out on the board, then you get to take the action not only of the card that you play from your hand, so the card that you place out, but also the action of the location that you placed the card at. If you place a card out that has a lower value than the gift that you're exchanging it for, then you have to mitigate that in different ways in order to actually be able to take the action. And the main way that you do that is you have to spend, I believe, workers in order to actually take the action that's out there. Or you can discard a card from your hand and basically lose a turn. So it's very challenging to decide how you're going to play out the cards that are in your hand, where you're going to exchange them, and how you can plan everything out in order to work as efficiently as possible. And it's just one that I fell in love with on the first play because of that card play action and how tight those decisions are. You have a certain number of workers that you can spend. You'll definitely run out of workers throughout the game. You'll want to pay attention to not only the value of the card that you are playing and the location you're playing it to, but also the value of the cards that you're taking back into your hand, because the gifts that you exchanged from the game board, that becomes your hand for the next round. And it also will dictate how many workers you'll gain at the end of that round. So the person that has matched the most cards with the favor dice that were rolled at the beginning of the round will actually earn a bonus point, like some victory points, and you'll be earning your workers based on the number of cards that you had that matched as well. There's an intrigue track that's going to dictate like how ties are broken and player order, and there's just so many different things going on. You'll be shipping your boats down the river and earning an additional worker or an additional card or victory points as you're doing that as well. You'll be traveling around the top of the board and collecting these little tokens, which will give you immediate benefit, but you also can save them and turn them in later. You'll be collecting jade for some set collection, and you'll be going and funding or exploring like this decree section of the board, which will give you end game victory points or in-game bonus abilities. There's just so many different things going on in this game. It's really delightful. If you are a more kind of seasoned gamer and you haven't played Gugong, I definitely would say give it a try. Check it out. It's so fun. It's one that I continue to enjoy playing. Like I said, I've only played it solo. It's one that I would love to check out in multiplayer, maybe at a convention where I can pull in some more medium to heavyweight Euro gamers who enjoy these types of efficiency puzzle games and check it out with them. But that is my number 27, Gugong. Number 26 is a game that is returning to the list from 2021. This is Wingspan. Wingspan was designed by Elizabeth Hargrave with artwork from Ana Maria Martinez, Natalia Rojas, Greg May, and Beth Sobel. It was published by Stonemaier Games in 2019. This was number 11 on my list, and so it's dropped about 15 places, which again is not that much considering there are 66 new games on the list this year that weren't there before. So it's held pretty steady, all things considered. For those that are not familiar with Wingspan, Wingspan is a tableau building game based on birds. When I originally heard of Wingspan, I was pretty much immediately turned off by the theme itself. I'm not a bird person, and I just couldn't understand why this bird game was so popular. It was brought out at a game night one evening, and it was just kind of called out, anybody want to play Wingspan? And I figured, why not give it a try and see what all the fuss was about? And I am so glad that I did. It was an absolute surprise to me how much I enjoyed this tableau building game. And I immediately went and found myself a copy, picked it up during a reprint, and got my copy in hand. I have since purchased all of the expansions as well as the big nesting box. I have basically everything Wingspan here and have loved playing it, including the new Asia expansion that just came out. Wingspan, like I said, is a tableau building game. So you will have a hand of cards, and on your turn, you can take one of 4 actions. And the 4 actions are laid out on the player board that is in front of each of the players. So you can play a bird card from your hand by spending the food resources and or eggs required to play it. And you will add the bird to your board in one of 3 of the locations. Some of the birds can be played into any of the locations, but many of the birds will have restrictions on where they can be played, either into the forest, the grasslands, or the wetlands at the bottom. As you play these birds into your player board, you will actually make the actions of those 3 locations even better. The other actions that you can take in the forest, you can gain food. So originally you can gain 1 food dice from the bird feeder. And as you play birds into that forest location on your board, then you'll be able to take 2 and 3, and it makes that action stronger. In the wetland or in the grasslands, you'll be able to gain eggs, which are one of the resources in the game. Eggs are worth victory points at the end of the game, but they're also required when you are playing birds past that first slot in each of the locations. Once you play that second bird into a location, you have to pay the food resources and an egg as well. When you get further into the board, you'll have to pay 2 eggs to play birds out. And in the wetlands, you'll be able to collect new cards into your hand. So you can draw cards from the 3 face-up birds in the display or from the top of the deck face down and just kind of see what you get. The deck of bird cards is huge. The birds will have different abilities on them, and you will gain these abilities either when the bird is played or when the bird is activated. And to activate a bird, you will actually be increasing the benefits of the other actions that are on your player board. So like I said, if you go into the forest and you're going to do that gain food action, you'll gain food based on what's printed on your player board, what's the first one that you can actually see. But then as you move through that section, you'll gain whatever's on the board, then you'll move your cube across and you'll gain whatever's on the card, the bird card that you land on. So if it has a power that says when activated, that's when that will activate. And so as you build your birds into your tableau onto your board, you will not only make the action of that location stronger, but you'll also potentially increase the total number of actions that you have to play as well as you go across. Wingspan is what I would consider probably an introductory plus game. It's not one that I would throw brand new gamers into necessarily, although this has been a huge success with people who have never played hobby board games ever and are picking it up at like their local nature center. It'll be on the shelves there because it's a nature themed game and it has all these fun facts and details about the birds that are on the cards. But in my experience, this is one that I tend to bring out with people who have sort of played some introductory games, have said that they like the hobby, seem to be picking up on mechanisms that are outside of just like roll and move or playing cards, draw and play cards. This is sort of a next step for them into sort of those light to medium games. I have played Wingspan quite a bit. I think I'm somewhere in like the 50s for plays on Wingspan. I play it on Board Game Arena. I play it on the digital app. I play my physical copy at home. I've played it a lot solo. I have played solo with all of the expansions, including the new duet mode from Asia, which is absolutely fantastic. That one is so much fun. If I was going to pull it out for solo, that might be one that I would throw in the most often. Each of the expansions adds something a little bit different. You can mix and match them. There's just so much content for Wingspan that it never gets old, and it just has a really high replayability value. The cards are beautiful. All of the birds, like I said, have details on them, and you can even download an app called Wing Song where you can scan the bird cards and hear the bird song, which is super fun. And if you are into birds, for sure, check that out as well. So that is my number 26, Wingspan. Number 25 is a new game to the list. This is Space Park from Keymaster Games. Space Park was originally published in 2018, and it was designed by Henry Audubon with artwork from Brian Edward Miller. So Space Park is from the same company and designer as Parks, which was on the list a little earlier, but Space Park is definitely my favorite Keymaster games that I've tried so far. It is a small box game that has a very small footprint on the table as well, but it is just such a delight. This is one that plays from 1 to 4 players, and I've mostly played it solo, but I have also taught it to Rory, who is 9 right now, and she absolutely loved it. She played it with me several times back to back. She was so excited because she won some of the games, and she always gets excited when she plays something new that's not a kid's game where she can beat mom at it. And it's so fun to see kids engaging in games like that and really having fun and being competitive in games as well. She wanted to teach it to my mom, so I've played it with my mom as well. But primarily I play this solo. It plays extremely quickly solo, very, very simple. But how the game plays is you will arrange the tiles that come in the game as a module board. So you'll set it up. There's a double width, like folded tile that folds out, and that makes your main section. And then you'll place these 6 other tiles out to create locations. And then you'll add 3 rocket ships onto these locations to start. And on your turn, you will select one of the rocket ships and you will take the action from the location that the rocket ship is at. So it might be at one of the locations where you're going to be collecting gems. And if you take that rocket, then you'll collect the gems, you'll pick the rocket up, and you'll move it clockwise to the next location. So every time you take an action, you'll move the rocket to the next location. And so it switches up what actions are available for the player on the next turn. You're collecting gems in an effort to complete badges on cards. So you have a hand of cards that are these badges, and they will have a cost on the left-hand side in gems, either green, purple, or red. And once you've completed, you have all of the resources in order to complete a card. You actually have to visit a specific location in order to turn that card in and place it in front of you. Most of the cards are going to have some sort of special ability or ongoing benefit that they will grant you for the rest of the game when you play them. And then they're also worth a set number of victory points. Space Park is a game that I've taken along with us on vacations and played at home as well. It's a small box game that you can take with you anywhere, play just about anywhere. It takes a very small amount of table space as well, plays quickly, and is great for families, for new gamers, for more experienced gamers, anyone really. There's very little to any reading involved. There's a little bit of reading on the cards. So I would recommend this one. Probably 8 and up would be a good age range for it. And it's, I think, relatively easy to find. It's one to check out for sure. That is my number 25, Space Park. Number 24 is another space-themed game. This is Mission Red Planet, specifically the 2nd edition. Mission Red Planet is new to the list this year. It was published in 2015. It was designed by Bruno Cathala and Bruno Fedudi. Artwork is from Andrew Bosley, Samuel Shimato, and Alan Spiller. It was published by Fantasy Flight Games. Mission Red Planet is a game that I do own in my collection, but I actually have not played my physical version of the game that I purchased. I have played this game with other people's copies, and it's one that I absolutely adore. Mission Red Planet is a simultaneous action selection and area control or area majority game. I typically don't like area control and area majority games, but this one just really struck a good chord with me because it has a level of chaos that's introduced by the simultaneous action selection, which makes it feel a little bit more balanced for players who are more or less familiar with strategies for area control games. So in Mission Red Planet, you will have a hand of, I believe, 9 cards, and everyone has the same hand of cards. On each round, you are going to select a card from your hand to play secretly. And then you will do a countdown from 9 to 1, and if your number from the card you played comes up, then you'll reveal that card and take the action at that time. Each of the cards has a different action that you will be able to take. Some of them are going to allow you to add your astronauts onto the rocket ships that are getting ready to set out for Mars. Some of them will allow you to launch the rocket ships that have already been loaded. Some of them will let you blow up rocket ships or send other people's players out into the abyss or the unknown, and you can kill people with the saboteur, for example. So it's all kinds of crazy stuff that can happen, and you don't know who's going to play which cards when. And then after the simultaneous action phase, any of the ships that have launched will land on Mars in a specific location that's indicated by the ship itself, and you will add your astronauts to that location. You'll flip over a token to tell you what type of resource you can potentially mine from that location, and so there's area majority once you get out onto Mars. It plays over a number of rounds, and there's some kind of intermittent scoring rounds where you're going to be earning different resources based on your majority in the different sections of Mars or on the moon. and you will play out until all of the rounds have been completed. You will add up your score, and the person with the most points wins. Like I said, I haven't played my copy of this game physically yet, but it's one that I absolutely had so much fun playing, and it's one that I really need to get back to the table. It's not a overly complex game. It's certainly one that you could introduce to new players. There is a fair amount of reading, so I wouldn't recommend it for new readers or people who are less confident with their reading, as you won't want to necessarily tell people what you still have in your hand on each of the turns or what you're potentially thinking about playing. Mission Red Planet also has a solo mode that's available on Board Game Geek, which I am planning on trying out in my next solo challenge for June through September. So look forward to thoughts on the solo mode coming soon. But for now, that is my number 24, Mission Red Planet. Number 23 is a game that's returning to the list from 2021. This is Potion Explosion. Potion Explosion is a 2018 game designed by Stefano Castelli, Andrea Crespi, and Lorenzo Silva. It has artwork from Giulia Gigini, and it was published by Horrible Guild. This game originally showed up on my list at number 6, so it has dropped 17 places, which again is not actually that much. Potion Explosion is a game that I continue to play very often to this day. This is a favorite of my family, from my mom all the way to my youngest daughter. I think every single one of us has had this on our top games list at some point in time. Potion Explosion is a set collection game with a unique sort of gimmicky mechanism where you have this marble track in the center. So you have this marble dispenser that has tracks on it, and you'll drop all of the marbles into the top at the top, and they will all slide down and fill in these tracks. And you'll have 4 different colors of marbles that you will be trying to collect to complete potions in front of you. So each of the potions in front of you, which you will start out with drafting through a snake draft, has a specific requirement for the marbles that need to go in it to complete it. And on your turn, what you're going to do is take a single marble from one of the slide tracks in the dispenser. And as you pull that marble out, if the marbles slide down and the 2 marbles that connect when it slides down match, you'll take all of those matching marbles out. If it slides down again and they match, you'll take those matching marbles out. And if it slides down again and they match, you'll continue doing that. So in this way, if you've created a situation where the marbles are going to match on multiple of these slides, then you can take quite a few marbles on one turn. And that really is your ultimate goal, is to find the slide track that gives you the best bang for your buck, so you can get the most marbles that you need in one single pull. Each of the different potions, once you've completed it, will flip over and give you a special ability that you can use once during the game. So for example, one of the potions allows you to take all of the marbles that are matching from one of the slide tracks in a section. So if one of the slide tracks has 5 blue marbles that are all matching together, you could take all of those by spending that potion. There's also ones that let you take a single or take 2 next to each other if they aren't the same. There's all kinds of different potions that you can add into the game, and you'll play with only, I think, 5 on each of the games. You'll also be working to complete sets of potions to earn yourself ribbons. So if you complete 5 unique different potions, then you'll get a ribbon. If you complete 3 of the same potion, you'll get a ribbon. And every time you complete 3 of the same, you'll get a ribbon. The ribbons are actually the game timer. When a set number of ribbons has been collected by the players, depending on the player count, that will trigger the end of the game. Everyone will get the same number of turns, so you can theoretically collect additional ribbons after that last one that triggers the end has been collected. On your turn, you can also do a get help action, which is worth -2 points, but it allows you to take 1 marble from anywhere in the slide track. It does not trigger the explosion effect, but you can take 1 out and add it to your supply. And that can help you a lot of times to set up a really good explosion sequence on your main turn. You can take that action before or after your main turn, whichever you prefer. You can also spend those potions on your turn whenever you want to, before or after your main action. So it's a really fun little puzzle game, and the first couple times you play it, definitely for me, the first couple of times I played it, I was not seeing the strategy correctly, and I was just absolutely getting like stomped in this game. I was like 40 points to other people's like 60, 70, 80, 90 points. But once you understand the strategy and you can see those marble slide combinations and those patterns, it's such a satisfying game. It's even better in real life with the physical game, and that's the one that we like to play at home as much as possible, but we have played this just a ton on Board Game Arena. It's one of the main games that I play with my mom, my brother, and my sister-in-law. So that is my number 23, Potion Explosion. Number 22 is new to the list this year, and this is the third and final game from the Century Trilogy. This is Eastern Wonders. Century Eastern Wonders was designed by Emerson Matsuuchi and published by Plan B Games. It is a 2018 release game with artwork from Atha Kanani and Chris Quilliams. Like I said, this is new to the list this year. It was not on my list in 2021 because I hadn't played it yet at the time. Once I played this one, it quickly jumped to my favorite of the 3 games in the Century Trilogy. It is a very easy entry-level game for new players, just like the rest of the series. So if you've been following along, I've already talked about Spice Road and A New World, which are the other 2 in the trilogy. Spice Road is a hand management sort of set collection game, whereas A New World introduces worker placement. Both are very basic entry level. In Eastern Wonders, the main mechanism that it's introducing is pick up and deliver. And so in Eastern Wonders, you are still going to be using those same colored spice cubes. You're still going to be doing the action where you're going to be transforming one or more spice cubes into one or more of a different type of spice cube and kind of upgrading your spice cubes to complete objectives to deliver these orders. So unlike in the other 2 games where you have these objective cards kind of at the top of the display that you're trying to match, in Eastern Wonders, you are trying to complete deliveries that are at 4 ports at different locations around this modular board that you build with these tiles. And once you've collected all of the cubes that you need, you have to actually travel over to that harbor, that port tile, in order to complete that objective and deliver it. So that's where I was talking, there's a lot of that kind of pick up and deliver in the game. You'll also be placing your little like hut tokens out on these different islands where you'll be able to take the actions to exchange your cubes, and you'll unlock bonuses and points by placing these out on the different types of islands. It's just such a delightful game. I love the look and aesthetic of it. It's bright and it's blue. It looks like you're out in the ocean exploring and traveling, the Spice Road. But I just really love the aesthetic and the pick up and deliver mechanism in Eastern Wonders, which is why it's my favorite. It's not everyone's favorite, but it definitely kind of just ticks that box with me. It's the one that if I could only pick to keep one of them, Eastern Wonders is the one that I would pick. I know I'm in the minority here. For most people, Eastern Wonders was their least favorite of the trilogy, but for me, I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but that's definitely my favorite of them. You can also play all of the Century games together in any combination, so you can combine, say, Spice Road with Eastern Wonders. You can combine all 3. You can combine Eastern Wonders with A New World in any combination that you want them to. And I also have all of the play mats for the 3 games, and they look absolutely stunning on the table, which just kind of adds to that table presence. So that is my number 22, Century Eastern Wonders. All right, rounding us out today, coming in at number 21 and just barely missing that top 20 list is a returning game to the list. This is Rome from Ryan Lockett. Rome is a 2019 game designed and illustrated by Ryan Lockett and published by Red Raven Games. Rome originally came in on my list at number 24 in 2021. So this is one that actually rose 3 places on my list since then. Rome is a small box game that I think it was maybe the second one I picked up from Red Raven Games, but it is a area majority game, which again, I've kind of talked about this earlier, that this is not one of my favorite mechanisms, but this game is just so much fun. The artwork from Ryan Lockett definitely helps. His artwork in that Arzium world is just absolutely beautiful and stunning. But in Rome, you will have a deck of cards and it will have a grid on one side where it looks like a map. And some of the spaces on the grid will have coins on them and some will not. They have kind of all different illustrated landscapes, so it'll be a little bit of a mix on the board when you lay them out. So you'll create a board in the center by placing out 6 of these cards to create this grid in the center. And then all of the cards on the other side have a character on them or a person that you are trying to wake up because they have fallen asleep out in this world and you're trying to rescue them. That's kind of the premise of the game, but more or less it's an abstract strategy area majority game. So what you're going to be doing on your turn is you will start out with a number of characters in front of you, and each of them has a specific pattern shown on the bottom of their card. And on your turn, you will use one of these cards that is currently face up, you will flip it over, and you will place your markers in the pattern that was shown on the card out somewhere on the board in front of you. And you're doing this to try to gain majority on one of the cards that's out there. As soon as a card is completely filled out, you'll look and see who has the majority, and the person who has the majority will gain that card, and they will flip it over onto the character side, and that character goes into their set that they can then use. And these characters will have different patterns on them as well, where you can add more or less tokens and in different kind of configurations. So that's a consideration as well. If you place out a token on a map location where there are coins, you'll collect those coins. And the coins can be used to do kind of one of two things in the main base game. Is you can spend the coins to place markers out in the pattern where it's a dotted line. So on these patterns that you'll be able to place out on, some of the locations are filled in solid and those are free to place. If you want to place a token on any of the dotted locations, you actually have to pay coins in order to do that. You can also pay coins to refresh your characters early, and you can pay coins if a card is completed and there is a tie for majority. You will actually bid coins to see who wins. So you'll play this out until one player has collected a certain number of characters in front of them, and then you will end the game and count up the victory points on all of the characters that you've collected, and the player with the most points wins. I have played this game multiplayer as well as solo using a solo mode from board game Geek. I actually mostly have been playing this solo recently because the solo is super quick, super easy to run, very satisfying. It gives me the feel of the multiplayer game without having to have other people around. But this is one that's certainly a family weight entry-level game. I've played this with my husband. I've played this with Rory. I've played this with, I believe my mom has played it with me as well. And we played it with the little sort of mini expansion that's included with the like artifacts, which adds just a little bit to the game, but not too much. The artwork, like I said, is absolutely stunning. It's from Ryan Lockett, and it's one that I have really, really enjoyed. This is my favorite game from Red Raven Games, which I'm sure a lot of people will be shocked by, but I don't own and I haven't played any of the big box games from Red Raven Games. I have only played small box games from him, being Rome, Artifacts Inc., and Dingo's Dreams. So this is my favorite of those 3. That will do it for today. Rounding us out at number 21 is Rome. Thanks so much for checking this video out today and coming along on this journey with me through my top 100 games of all time. I hope that you enjoyed this section of the list. Next time we will be into the top 20, the final 20 games on my list. If you have any games that you would like to share that maybe you've played some of these and like them, put a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, consider following us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Like and subscribe to us here on YouTube as well. And until next time, have fun playing games with your family, your friends, and even solo. Bye.